Yeah, thank you for coming and for being interested. The coconut, of course, we all know they're beautiful to drink. We know that young ones are sweeter, but all of a sudden, from our own sort of love of a nice drink, it went into the hands of the UN, and they created this sports drink culture about it. And it's just a tidal wave of change in public perception and public health. It came about with a declaration that coconut would be the major beneficiary of climate change in terms of agricultural crops. And most people aren't ready for it, and the millions and millions of very poor farming families are seeing new opportunity, but also struggling to meet demand. People are working so hard to provide the coconut products that the demand seems to be insatiable for. I think 28% of all new products on Coles and Woolworths shelves last year all had coconut in the label. Everybody's making a coconut something because it sells, and not everyone knows why, not everyone cares. There's a lot of unscrupulous sort of profiteering and people getting on the bandwagon. There's a lot of low-grade coconut oil being sold as cold-pressed virgin, even extra virgin, which really only applies to olive oil. And so you don't, if you're buying by price tag, or you're buying without smelling, tasting, you can quite easily get disappointed, and you can get a coconut oil that isn't as good as the last time you had it, or goes off more quickly, isn't as stable, doesn't have the same shelf life. So I guess I do this to hope that somebody's inspired enough to just see that it can just happen at home in simple appliances that we all have. It's not hard, and the oil that you can make in this way is truly cold-pressed, virgin. It is better absorbed by the skin than a lot of expeller-pressed or high-heat oils. Some of the centrifuge oils are very clear and have a long shelf life, but still have different subtle qualities, whereas this one is it is a wet kitchen process that just starts from your coconut milk, which I'll show you how easy it is to make, and it ferments, and this has been sitting here since 5 o'clock last night on a little timer to turn it off every so often, so it just keeps it at body temperature between 35 and 40, and it runs through its process, and the cream that's emulsified coconut water and cream held together by natural gums in the coconut gradually separate, and then just the cream part is drawn off and kept at temperature until I'm anxious to see how well it's gone, but you all have a chance to come up and look in there, and we'll ladle some out. And so yeah, there's just a thin layer on top of the pot, which is what we call coagulated coconut protein, and we take that off, and underneath you've got your crystal clear virgin coconut oil, which we can just ladle off, and below that is water. So I should start with making the milk. Stop talking. There's lots of other things I want to show you. The most important being is there's a Polynesian wisdom about choosing good coconuts to plant, and it's not really in our culture. It's really just been revived. People think a coconut's a coconut, but before all that, some people have been looking at them for thousands of years and seeing boys and girls based on different traits of the fruit. Now, there's simple characteristic differences, but these ones with the blue are boy coconuts. They've shot straight up. They're fronds are very narrow and generally tend to be longer, sometimes even with little like nipple on the bottom or pointy. And these are the boys. A lot of times these are weeded out of the nursery and not planted because they don't have as many fruits as the girl coconuts, or more predominantly female. Sure, anytime. For making the oil and getting it to work, it's preferable if they're dry, been on the ground, they say, for a couple of months. And there's a little flyer here with instructions on how to do that, the subtleties of it. But generally, this one is not quite as brown as this one. This will make a beautiful milk, which will stay in the fridge, and you can pour it, 3 or 4 days, and it's better really for a utility milk, whereas the milk we make from this one, it really does want to separate out into cream on top, water below. You can still stir it up, and it's all delicious. I mean, you never stop once you start. But really, for getting oil, you want nuts that have even shot already is fine, but been on the ground for a while. I'd show you this. This is the germ pore of the coconut. That's where it sprouts from. This one is a girl. It's very rounded. It's been selected for, especially because it's more rounder, higher volume of water. This one's also tending to be female because it shoots naturally out of the part of the husk which is the easiest to get through. The softest part of the husk is right over the third eye. The girl coconut will find its way out through this soft part. Even if it's pointing down like that, it will find its way out through there, be usually thicker at the base, and when it grows up, it tends to have the husk just turning in at the bottom, which makes it much easier to take off. And also much lobier. So these fronds are very rounded, and those are the ones that you want to plant. This is progressively selecting for more and more rounder coconuts. Our marine parks, or our government, is more or less decided there's a long one that's a boat coconut that washed around, and the round ones are all domesticated and cultivated, so we should weed them out. And they've been doing this on our islands, with incredible arrogance. But really, this type of selection is what we have inherited. There's brilliant coconuts in Cairns from all places that have been brought here. And I just saw it and took it on as a mission myself to get the best of the genetics that was here and spread it around. So we have a lot of dwarf varieties here. We have a lot that are predominantly female coconuts, plenty that are feral, plenty that are predominantly male, but nobody is weeding them out. So I thought I would induct gardeners into this campaign to make better coconuts for our future. So that said, I'll do the little demo on making the milk and then show you how it cooks into oil. So this is something they invented in Sri Lanka in the 50s. There's another more common method that's just a flat blade like this that you sit on and you scrape on a flat blade. This is the most common way that people are scraping coconut. We want the water to go in, so and by the way, this is more male coconut, more longer. quite relatively thick kernel, they would say, but the dwarf one might have a thinner kernel, but that kernel in the dwarf one would also be sweeter, so it affects the quality of the milk that you make. And anyway, this is, I try to think how I do it in the kitchen at home, but yeah, just for our home kitchen, this is good enough, you know, 1 or 2 coconuts every night or two. That,
It doesn't do this enough.
yeah, it never moves on our bench. I will explain that a lot of people are afraid of getting the brown layer, which they call the tester layer, into their cream or their milk because they think it will discolor it. It's not really true. You can grate right into the shell and still come up with a lovely clean oil. This layer is actually like a electrical dielectric. This is a insulator between the inside cathode process and the outside anode process in what I would say God's carbon batteries. So you have the electrolyte inside conducting millivolts that you can measure. You can put your multimeter into a fresh coconut and really, you know, acknowledge the vitality and the circuits that are involved within the shell. So anyway, this can all go in. You know, alternatively, you know, you can scrape it all out with a knife and just blend it up. So long as you get it in a bag with some water, and I might put a little bit from this one too. This one's slightly younger, hasn't fully browned off, but the shell is dark brown. So we use a little bit of hot water just to clean that off. Quite often I just use the bottom of the coconut.
How hot is the water that you use?
It doesn't have to be hot at all. This just means that the tool gets cleaned in the process. And if it's a little bit warm, it's easier to extract the cream. It doesn't matter if it's quite hot.
Does it damage it if it's boiling?
Oh, you wouldn't do boiling water because you're about to put your hands in it, you know. It's just warm so it's comfortable and clean hands. You would recognize it as curtains. Yeah? Yeah. So these are sewn by a lady in Cairns just from curtain shear. But most of your sprouting bags aren't strong enough to do this on a regular basis. So yeah, it's just polyester. Doesn't pick up the smell of the coconut, but you can, you know, we reuse it regularly, just rinsing it under the tap and letting it dry. But it's good to have, you know, a nice strong bag. And this process, the little bit of water helps break down the gums that are that are holding the emulsion of cream and water together, or keeping the coconut skim milk and the cream together. So the gums are diluted by the water as well. And what we would do is enzymatically, the enzymes from the water starts releasing all the oils from the fiber, and you know, it's something that I do to get out of cooking. You know, I make the cream and Jackie, you know, cleans the fish, does everything else, and it, you know, it's just become a nice way that we cook most of our food in coconut milk because it's free. We've been doing this for a long time with you know, a mechanical grater and doing large batches and making ice cream and yogurt and things, but it's only quite recently that we read the instructions on making the oil and followed them and was surprised that it's really quite simple. And having this as your sort of home kitchen technique is a good start. So really, you know, there's some people who make a beer can crusher or a plastic bottle crusher out of stainless steel that'd be quite good for scaling this up just to get a fair bit more out of it. But really that's about it. And you know, some places they'll add more water and get a second pressing for a lighter milk. We just, you know, more or less straight into compost or the garden. But this can be processed into coconut flour. It can be dried and milled. There's still a fairly high you know, oil content in there. Didn't get it all out. But we can just keep an eye on that, and it will stratify. It will more or less separate into, you know, water and a little bit of cream on top. To do the oil, they would say some places, big coconuts like this, you know, 12 or 15 coconuts, you could get a litre of oil. What I usually do about 25, and some of them are very thin flesh. I do them all the grating very quickly, and I wring it out in like a much bigger curtain, and yeah, more or less have a tub full of probably that. There was probably maybe 10 litres of cream and water that I separated out just by leaving it in a dehydrator for a little while, starting to gradually bring the fermentation temperature up. After a couple of hours, I could drain that water off the bottom and put the remaining cream into this cooker. So that's really all that happens. You make the milk and keep the temperature stable, more or less 38 degrees, someone sort of said is perfect, but I think anywhere between 36 and 40. If it's not hot enough, which happened in the dehydrator, it kept it all a bit too cool, it stayed coagulated and didn't actually separate. But if you get it, you know, round about 40 degrees, you'll get this layer on top that you can just, no, not that one, this one. Can take the whole thing off, and anyone's welcome to have a look in. Or
Can you use that for anything?
yeah, this is dried in a lot of places and turned into like an animal feed, and it's protein. It's coagulated coconut protein, so about 6% protein in a coconut. So if you dry it, you can mix it with mints, and they have recipes for hamburger extender and all sorts of things. But we sort of get enough of that off so you can see the oil, and then might be missing a bucket, but I will just yeah, that's the oil. This is actually the batch I did before. That's the drying, and there's a post-production stage afterwards where you dry it out, and that takes away any sour taste, and makes it sort of have a longer shelf life. But because I'm without a precious bucket, I'll just do it like that. And we probably really not more complicated than that. We like a ladle that's got a bit of a lip on it if you do a good batch. So, yeah, from 20, about say 20 coconuts, we'll end up with probably 2.5 litres of oil altogether. Yeah. Not us, no. We use it every day. We spread it already. Yeah, if you don't have to wait for Woolies to have a sale, for the good stuff. But there are some good brands that the big supermarkets have, and there's a lot of brands in the market that are actually deodorized coconut oil that is being sold as virgin, cottage industry, small scale hand processing. The European market prefer no coconut odor for baking, for recipes. So they're saying, oh, we'd like odorless. Anyway, that's why I thought it was important to show that you can do it for yourself, because you don't want to be paying $15 for a jar of something going. It's a little bit cheaper, but you don't get like this stuff. You immediately feel like I've had something that works with my body. This is made at body temperature, and it's absorbable through the skin. Some of the other oils won't go through the skin nearly as easily. They've just been left out, rancid in the sun or dried. They've got molds growing on them. Then they end up having to be refined and bleached and deodorized to get back into a saleable product.
Is there any way, you were talking earlier about when you're purchasing coconut oil through these major processors that they're deodorized, and they may have...
Yeah, they'll say something.
Is there any sort of features you would look for to determine what is a good quality coconut oil as opposed
Yeah, I think there's a lot of tricky stuff put on labels. There's no additives to make it last longer. It's just, could you say, killed off. And I wouldn't say it's killed off completely. It's just if you taste it and you feel like it makes you cough, or you feel a catch in the back of your throat, it's probably an oil that's got a little bit of moisture content and a little bit of rancidity that's, finds its way out through the oil after 12 months on the shelf. You just don't know how long it's been there. This oil we'd probably keep in the cupboard, say, for a year and a half, quite safely. But some of the other ones probably have a slightly longer shelf life. But, I mean, in the cupboard. It's... Yeah, no, it's happy to be liquid. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm a strong believer that coconuts just die in the fridge. This was God's idea before refrigeration. And we're getting all these ones from Thailand that experience this cold death. What happens, they end up tasting sweeter because in the cold, the complex sugar molecule that you want from the young coconut has more or less unwound and become simple sugar, and it just ends up being something that feeds digestive bad bacteria. So this last stage, you don't have to use filter paper. You can just use a cotton bud, not a cotton bud, a little cotton wool ball in the bottom of a funnel. Just give it something that it'll flow through. It's nice and warm. It flows out fairly easily. And get impatient when you've got too much of it. But this is like a final stage. They call it a double boiler. So you more or less half fill a pot with water, and you put this in so that that's submerged, and just simmer on the stove for about 15 minutes, and that will more or less vaporize or volatilize any of the sort of sour components that are left from the fermentation. When you're ladling it out, it's quite easy to dig in too deep to get the last of it, and then you pick up water, and the coagulated protein on the bottom, sitting on top of the skim milk, it's also usable, but that is sort of like how bad flavors get introduced. So really the last bit becomes your B grade coconut oil. The first bit is your A grade, but you know, that was the first batch we did, what we call our B grade. It's still crystal clear and no solids in the bottom. And this is the only drying process we've done. We just let it simmer for 15 minutes.
With the lid on?
Yeah, just get it boiling, and once it's boiling, just turn it right down. And 15 minutes. There are other methods that are in this manual that I'll make available to you all, that you can actually put it in a cupboard for a week at about 50 degrees. All these things will just stabilize any volatiles that are left from the fermentation and give it a longer shelf life and clarify it. It gets much clearer, and that's what you want. You don't really want to buy an oil that's got a whole lot of who knows what coming out of solution in the bottom of the jar. Those though they can come from this method as well, it's just a question of quality and developing the taste buds to go, oh, that's really good. That one, I can have by the spoonful. That one I can swish in my mouth and heal my teeth. This one I can, safely give to, so and so that, really wants the health benefits. In 5 minutes, I just want to show you one other life skill. This, you can tell how old or how good a coconut is by the sound. Everyone has their preference. The young jelly ones, full of water, have a very low note. You can hear it's very watery. As they get a little bit older, the sound, the note changes probably. They're still quite young. They have this soft jelly flesh, like I said before, that's going to turn into that tester layer. So the jelly flesh becomes this brown layer. That's vitamin E, that's tocopherol. A lot of people grate that out of the coconut, don't want to get it in the batch, but that's really one of the healthiest parts. Anyway, what we do with a coconut that's a little bit older than the jelly stage is we add probiotics to it. You think a guy could find a cocoa tap? Oh, I think I put it in here. So with this is just a very quick way. You go in till you hear the shell, and if you can't just keep pushing straight through, it's because the coconut's a little bit older. You turn it upside down, and the weight of the coconut just impales itself. It needs to have that T on so you can get it out again mainly, otherwise you could just hammer a bit of pipe in or any number of simple things. What we do is drink it down a little bit, and then this is like a liquid broad spectrum probiotic, a very good, expensive, like $60 a bottle, but we can make this bottle last forever. You just put a little bit in there, and put one of these clever airlock devices in it. And this indispensable bit of laboratory equipment. And that stops any other airborne bacteria being introduced to it. You leave it out in the sun for 15 or 20 minutes or whatever you like, just experiment. So long as the input is good, the coconut water has 3 sets of chromosomes. It gives to whatever you put in it. It has the right balance of electrolyte for anything that's biocompatible. and it has enough sugar to turn into alcohol. So just that's how I started. I was a kid putting raisins in coconuts and trying to make alcohol, and then I thought being healthy was much more important. But anyway, that simply in 15 or 20 minutes that'll start getting a little bit tangy, and then it's like something that will rebuild your guts. And that's that's why I do it, because it's all available to farm in our community. The trees need to be farmed. They can't just be raided or run up and steal a bunch here and there. You need to understand the tree well enough to encourage it to give and to know what it is that you're harvesting. All these are lowered down on the rope. All these particular green dwarf nuts are germinated if they're old enough by drying them out and getting them to sprout, like this fellow here. And basically I select for any good dwarf ones. I'll propagate them. If they're a nice girl, or this one in particular, girl-boy mix, long pointy coconut, but yet still with very loby leaves. These are all worth planting, and they have the capacity to yield very heavily. And a lot of people don't want them to yield at all. They want to inject chemicals into them and see if they can make all the flowers fall off. I mean, there's so many hideous approaches to the dualistic way of seeing the coconut, good but a problem, rather than actually allowing it to reveal the truth to you. It, nature will be your teacher, but you have to first get past that mindset of this is problematic, this is too hard, this is too labour intensive, could never happen in Australia. All those ideas are very retrograde. They're thought up in another time and not really helpful, because just to put that idea to a stop, lots of insurance companies, banking in Panama, they're running a racket of overstating the risk. It's really clear, and the Douglas Shire Council got in a lot of trouble for saying really silly things in their coconut management plan about the 150 deaths a year from coconut. These are all memes that they're fed by an insurance racket that goes on anywhere somebody has money. And basically there's only 4 true coconut deaths that were part of the assembling the statistics, and 3 of those 4 was from monkeys on ropes that were pissed off with their handlers. And I thought, yeah, that's right. You go to these countries, they say a coconut has 3 eyes. He knows who to hit and who to miss. If you're an American lawyer, stay in the car. They don't want that business plan where they have a wholesome industry and a tradition.
Okay, thank you very much
All right.
for that wonderful talk.
Thank you.